सदा शिव
अस्मदाचार्य पर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरु परम्पराम्।
ओम
ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ
सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। Om Tat Sat.
Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya.
Okay, Tanmay ji, could you just chant from verse number 18 to the end of the chapter? That's, I think, 29th verse.
Om Acharaya. Trinachiketasत्रयमेतद्विदित्वा य एवं विद्वागश्चिनुते नाचिकेतम् समृत्युपाशान् पुरतः प्रणोद्य शोकादिको मोदते स्वर्गलोके
शोकातिगो मोदते स्वर्गलोके
एष ते ग्निर्नचिकेतस्वर्ग्यः
एष ते ग्निर्नचिकेतस्वर्ग्यः
यमवृणीथा द्वितीयेन वरेण
यमवृणीथा द्वितीयेन वरेण
एतम् अग्निं तवैव प्रवक्ष्यन्ति जनासः
एतमग्निं तवैव प्रवक्ष्यन्ति जनासः
तृतीयं वरन्नचिकेतो वृणीष्व
तृतीयं वरं नचिकेतो वृणीष्व
येयं प्रेते विचिकित्सा मनुष्ये
येयं प्रेते विचिकित्सा मनुष्ये
अस्तीत्येके नायमस्तीति चैके
अस्तीत्येके नायमस्तीति चैके
एतद्विद्याम् अनुशिष्टस्त्वयाहम् वराणाम् एष वरस्तृतीयः
वराणामेष वरस्तृतीयः
देवैरत्रापि विकिचित्सितं पुरा
देवैरत्रापि विचिकित्सितं पुरा
न हि सुविज्ञेयं मणुरेष धर्मः
न हि सुविज्ञेयमणुरेष धर्मः
अन्यं वरन्नचिकेतो वृणीष्व
अन्यं वरन्नचिकेतो वृणीष्व
मामोपरोत्सीरति मा सृजैनम्
मामोपरोत्सीरति मा सृजैनम्
देवैरत्रापि विचिकित्सितं किल
देवैरत्रापि विचिकित्सितं किल
त्वञ्च मृत्यो यन्न सुज्ञेयमात्थ
त्वञ्च मृत्यो यन्न सुविज्ञेयमात्थ
वक्ता चास्य त्वात्रिगण्यो न लभ्यः
वक्ता चास्य त्वादृगण्यो न लभ्यः
नान्यो वरस्तुल्य एतस्य कश्चित्
नान्यो वरस्तुल्य एतस्य कश्चित्
शतायुषः पुत्रपौत्रान् वृणीष्व
शतायुषः पुत्रपौत्रान् वृणीष्व
बहून् पशून् हस्तिहिरण्यमश्वान्
बहून् पशून् हस्तिहिरण्यमश्वान्
भूमेर्महदायतनं वृणीष्व
भूमेर्महदायतनं वृणीष्व
वयं च जीवशरदो यावदिच्छसि
वयं च जीवशरदो यावदिच्छसि
एतत्तुल्यं यदि मन्यसे वरम्
एतत्तुल्यं यदि मन्यसे वरम्
वृणीष्व वित्तं चिरजीविकां च
वृणीष्व वित्तं चिरजीवितां च
महाभूमौ नचिकेतस्त्वमेधि
महाभूमौ नचिकेतस्त्वमेधि
कामानां त्वा कामभाजं करोमि
कामानां त्वा कामभाजं करोमि
ये ये कामा दुर्लभामर्त्यलोके
ये ये कामा दुर्लभामर्त्यलोके
सर्वान् कामागच्छन्दतः प्रार्थयस्व
सर्वान् कामागच्छन्दतः प्रार्थयस्व
इमा रामाः सरथाः सतूर्याः
इमा रामाः सरताः सतूर्याः
न हीदृशा लम्भनीया मनुष्यैः
न हीदृशा लम्भनीया मनुष्यैः
आभिर्मत्प्रत्ताभिः परिचारयस्व
आभिर्मत्प्रत्ताभिः परिचारयस्व
नचिकेतो मरणं मानुप्राक्षीः
नचिकेतो मरणं मानुप्राक्षीः
श्वोभावा मर्त्यस्य यदन्तकैतत्
स्वभावमर्त्यस्य यदन्तकैतत्
सर्वेन्द्रियाणां जरयन्ति तेजः
सर्वेन्द्रियाणां जरयन्ति तेजः
अपि सर्वं जीवितम् अल्पमेव
अपि सर्वं जीवितमल्पमेव
तवैव वाहास्तव नृत्यगीते
तवैव वाहास्तव नृत्यगीते
न वित्तेन तर्पणीयो मनुष्यः
न वित्तेन तर्पणीयो मनुष्यः
लप्स्यामहे वित्तमद्राक्ष्मचेत्त्वा
लप्स्यामहे वित्तमद्राक्ष्मचेत्त्वा
जीविष्यामो यावदिशिष्यसि त्वम्
जीविष्यामो यावदीशिष्यसि त्वम्
वरस्तु मे वरणीयः स एव
वरस्तु मे वरणीयः स एव
अजीर्यताम् अमृतानामुपेत्य
अजीर्यताममृतामामुपेत्य
जीर्यन्मर्त्यः क्वधस्थः प्रजानन्
जीर्यन्मर्त्यः क्वधस्तः प्रजानन्
अभिध्यायन् वर्णरति प्रमोदान्
अभिध्यायन् वर्णरतिप्रमोदान्
अतिदीर्घे जीविते को रमेत
अतिदीर्घे जीवितो को रमेत
यस्मिन्निदं विकिचित् सन्ति मृत्यो
यस्मिन्निदं विचिकित्सन्ति मृत्यो
यत्साम्पराये महति ब्रूहि नस्तत्
यत्साम्पराये महति ब्रूहि नत्सत्
योऽयं वरो गूढम् अनुप्रविष्टः
योऽयं वरो गूढमनुप्रविष्टः
नान्यन्तस्मान्नचिकेता वृणीते
नान्यन्तस्मान्नचिकेता वृणीते
इति प्रथमा वल्लिः.
इति
प्रथमा वल्लिः.
वल्लिः.
Thank you, Tanmay.
Thank you, Acharya.
So, look at the words. Viditva, having known. Etat trayam. So, you have to reverse the words. Viditva, etat trayam, having known these three. Trinachiketaha. Now, Trinachiketaha means that Nachiketa homam has to be invoked. That homam has to be performed thrice. So, one should invoke this fire 3 times. And here he uses the word Nachiketa to describe the fire. But that comes in a later verse where he says that in future, this particular ritual shall be known by your name. So he's just here, it's indicating it earlier. Trinachiketaha, one should invoke this fire thrice. And Sa Vidwan Ya Chinute, that person who practices this upasana, and Nachiketam Ya Chinute, who invokes this Nachiketa fire, evam, in this manner, Shoka Atika, goes beyond sorrow, Prondyaha, having destroyed, Mrityu Pashan. So Pasham is literally a noose. So you can say having destroyed the noose of death, Purataha, even before death, what does it do? Modate Swargaloke. He enjoys in Swargaloka. Even before death, he enjoys. So here he's saying this Nachiketa is now given the name of the ritual. Okay, this, remember here, the pronunciation is important. Nachiketa is the boy. Nachiketa is the ritual. So, just remember the pronunciations. When you say Nachiketa, it is the boy who is being referred to. When you say Nachiketa, it is the ritual which is named after the boy. And therefore, having known these 3 factors. So, if you look at the mantra 15 second line, you will see the word Ishtaka, right? So, Ishtaka is the type of bricks. Yavati and Yathava. There are 3 words, Ishtaka, Yavati, Yathava. And as we discussed in that particular mantra, Yavati means number of Ishtakas, number of bricks. So, number 1, type of brick. Number 2, Yavati, which is the number of the bricks. And Yathava, which means what is the format of the arrangement. Is it a square? Is it a rectangle? What kind of form are you giving to that Havan Kund? So the three items are there. The type of the brick, the number of the bricks, and the type of the arrangement. And therefore he says the person who knows all these 3 should, of course, it means he should arrange it all in a particular manner which is required here. By the number of bricks he should be arranging properly, the arrangement should be proper, and the type of the brick should be chosen according to the Shastra. After doing that, one should invoke this Nachiketa fire. And he says, person who invokes in this manner, he goes beyond sorrow. So having destroyed the chains of death, so Mrityu Pashan before death, he destroys the chains of death even before his death. So that's the meaning of that. Prondyaha Mrityu Pashan Purataha. So Prondyaha Mrityu Pashan. That should be taken together. And when before death he destroys, and having destroyed that, Purataha means before. And you have to add here, Mrityu Purataha, having destroyed before death, Modate Swargaloke, he enjoys the freedom from insecurity, which is called moksha. And therefore he says, this kind of a person, there's a saying in the scriptures that certain number of gunas are required, and these gunas can be developed by proper Vedic style, Vedic lifestyle, which means you do the karma yoga, you do the upasana yoga, you do all the karmas which are specified in the karma kanda. So once all this is there, you have a particular type of relaxed mind, and that is why he says shoka atigaha. He is free from mental pains. This is the meaning of shoka atigaha. And then mrityu pashan Praondyaha Purataha. He breaks the chains of the Lord Yama, Mrityu Pashan. When does he break it? Before death, before the death of the physical body. That is, while living in this world, while he is a jiva, while possessing this physical body, he destroys mortality. He breaks the chains of Mrityu Pashan. What is exactly Mrityu Pashan? So we look at Shankara. Shankara gives a very specific meaning. So he says Mrityu means the internal obstacles we face in our script, in our shastric journey. In the journey towards moksha, there are many obstacles which a person faces. And that is the specific meaning taken by Shankaracharya for Mrityu. Normal meaning is what? Death. But he says in this compound word Mrityu Pashan, literally meaning the noose of death, you should take Mrityu as things like Ajnanam, that is ignorance, Raga Dveshadi. So Raga Dveshadi is another name, generic, and it can be extended to all the Asuri Sampat found in the Bhagavad Gita. So all those negative qualities which have been described in the Bhagavad Gita by Lord Krishna, when he says Raga Dvesha, Adi, etc., it implies all those. And then he says Adharma also, not going on the path of Dharma. That is also a very basic obstacle. And these are to be taken here as the obstacles to be overcome for the proper phalam, for the proper consequences of the Nachiketa Homa. What is the destination if you do Nachiketa Homa? If you have done it properly, what is the outcome?
Brahmaloka.
Brahmaloka Prapti, right? So Mrityu here is taken as all the obstacles to the earning of the phalam of Nachiketa Homa, which means it can be taken as all the obstacles in your journey to Brahmaloka. Okay. And Brahmaloka ultimately is, what is the purpose of going there? So that you can, go to Brahmaji's Vedanta class and then get moksha there. So ultimately, this Mrityu should be taken as obstacle to moksha. You have to take that particular meaning over here. And Mrityu Pasha indicates that the punyam earned by doing this Nachiketa Homam, and he says 3 Nachiketa, it has to be done 3 times in your life. That punyam is so strong. What is implied here is that kind of dominance of the punyam is so high that it will dominate even the worst papam which may be present in your Sanchita basket. Normally, that Sanchita basket papam would have led to a lower birth. But here, because of the predominance of punyam which is earned during this particular homa, if you do it 3 times, this will take you to Swargaloka immediately or Brahmaloka also. Now, why do we say Swargaloka or Brahmaloka? Why is that said? We have discussed this earlier also. Any homam, any ritual in the Veda can take you to either Swargaloka or to Brahmaloka. What is the difference? It's a very important point which you have to remember. Anybody remembers?
Whether the person is a upasaka or not.
Person is a?
Did upasana.
Yes, exactly. So you can do the ritual purely as a karma. Okay, any ritual, including Nachiketa Homa, can be done purely as karma, or it can be done with meditation. So I was mentioning in one of the classes that, for example, when you chant Vishnu Sahasranama, you have the Dhyanam portion in the beginning. So that Dhyanam portion can be either chanted ritually, in which case it becomes a karma, or it can be used as an aid to meditation by visualizing the parts which are mentioned in the Dhyanam. And when you do that, that visualization becomes upasana. And that's how any karma, including the chanting of Vishnu Sahasranama, can be either a karma or a karma accompanied by upasana. And as we mentioned earlier, upasana enhances the effect of the karma. So normally any ritual with karma only is supposed to take you to Swargaloka, but that ritual enhanced with upasana will take you to Brahmaloka. So Where you go depends on whether it is pure karma, kevala karma, or upasana sahita karma. Two words are there. Kevala karma will take you to Swargaloka. Upasana sahita karma will take you to Brahmaloka. And therefore, modate Swargaloke. Again, this has to be interpreted in terms of both these consequences. If you have done karma only, then you go to the Swargaloka and enjoy the pleasures. If you have done karma with upasana, you go to Brahmaloka. Okay, and here there is a temptation given by Shruti. In this Brahmaloka, there is neither childhood nor old age. Only Yavanam, only youth is present. Okay, what happens to the Upasaka when he goes to Brahmaloka? There are two directions available, two options available. The first one is that he goes and purely enjoys. So in each loka, you have a different body from the earthly body. So the higher the loka is, the more fine, the more subtle your body is. So you are able to enjoy the pleasures all the more, right? And that's why he says no old age in this Brahmaloka. Why no old age means you are forever youthful. So you can enjoy all the pleasures to the best of your ability. And what happens? You exhaust your punyam by enjoyment of sense pleasures. Then what happens? Shine punye martyalokam vishanti. You go back to martyalokam, which is the bhuloka. You go back to again start the cycle all over again. That is one option. The second option is to choose to gain Atmajnanam in Brahmaloka. And since Lord Brahmaji himself is the teacher, the teaching will be extremely clear. And once this is done from Brahmaloka, he will get Jivan Mukti in Brahmaloka. And he will get Videha Mukti when will he get Videha Mukti in Brahmaloka?
Pralayam, when
After
everything
the
dissolves.
after the punyam is done,
No.
exhausted punyam.
On dissolution.
Of
Pralayam.
what? Pralayam. When you use the word Pralayam, normally you don't take Brahmaloka as being dissolved.
Okay.
At Mahapralayam?
At Mahapralayam. The word used is Mahapralayam. That is the time when including Brahmaloka is dissolved, which is 100 years of Lord Brahmaji. Okay, and that calculation we saw is some astronomical figure. Okay? One need not take it very literally, but just to say that in Brahmaloka, you are there for a very long time. And therefore, once you enjoy yourself for that much long time, you can come back to the earth and start all over again. Or you can get Jnanam and then get Jivan Mukti, have a very long life of being a Jivan Mukta. And finally, when Brahmaloka is destroyed, you get Videha Mukti. That's the meaning of that particular mantra. And then he goes on to the next mantra. And this is still Yamaraj is talking. So he says, Hey Nachiketa, Agni Swargyaha. Agni Swargya means this fire ritual, Nachiketa Homam, which leads you to Swarga, Te, to you, has been taught by me. Okay. And he clarifies that I didn't teach this to you just because I wanted to. So he says, Eshaha Yama Avritaha. This is the one you asked for. And Yamaraj is being very specific. How did you ask for it? Dvitiya Varena, through your second boon. And Janaha Pravaksyanti, people will always speak Etam Agnihi Tava Eva, as yours only. This fire ritual, people will always talk about it as your fire ritual, He Nachiketa. So here he is giving that reference, saying that He Nachiketa, I have now taught you that ritual, that homam, which will lead a person to Swarga if it is properly performed. And he says, this is the second boon that you asked for, and I have taught you. And not only that, people will speak to you, speak of this fire ritual by your name only. They will call it Nachiketa Homam only, all the time. And now he says, Tritiyam Varam Rinishwa. So now Nachiketa, having done all this, now please choose your third boon. Well, 3 boons were there, right? So this is a transition mantra. So the second boon has now been completed. And Lord Yama is asking him to choose the third boon. So here again, remember the word Agni doesn't mean fire. It means the Agni Karma, the Vedic ritual, which is meant to reach heaven. So he says, I taught you because you asked me for that. and you ask me how, through the second boon. And now here onwards, this ritual will be known by your name only by all people. So they will call it Nachiketa Homam only. And now, hey Nachiketa, please choose your third boon. Okay. Now Shankara in his commentary gives a very interesting summarization of these mantras. So through the first and second boon, what did Nachiketa ask for? First boon was what? For father's peace of mind. The second boon was what? For going to Swargaloka, Brahmaloka. Now both these boons, so in terms of Tattva Bodha, one is Iha Loka Phalam, one is Paraloka Phalam. Is that clear? Asking for father's peace of mind is a fruit of, is a boon which was utilized for getting a benefit in this, on this world itself. So Ihaloka Phalam. And asking to get the wherewithal to perform the Nachiketa Homam was the second boon which will take you to Swargaloka, which is Paraloka. So Paraloka Phalam. So two boons are there. One deals with benefits in this world. One deals with benefits post-death, in the next world. Right? And therefore these two boons deal with Iha Paraloka Phalam. And Shankaracharya says that if you combine these two boons, what does it represent? Can anybody guess? You combine these two boons, what does it really represent? Tell me.
Raviji,
Yeah.
I think it takes care of Artha Kama Dharma, right? So only moksha is left.
Artha Kama Dharma. Okay, fine. Fine. It's a good enough answer. It takes care of the entire dualistic prapancha. Right. So Shankara says these two boons represents the entire Anatma prapancha. And Anatma prapancha is subject of which Veda? Purva Veda or Vedanta? Purva Veda. Right. And this Anatma prapancha is a very interesting what do you call viewpoint. He says this is temporary acceptance of Dvaitam. Temporary acceptance of Anatma prapancha. What is it called? The Sampradaya teaching has two aspects. And this is the first aspect of it. What is it called?
Anvaya Vyatireka.
No. We saw in Bhagavad Gita 13th chapter. We called it Adhyaropa Apavada. Superimposition and then negation. Right. So acceptance of, remember that in any of these scriptures, what is the first teaching? It is about Srishti only. It's about creation only, right? And later on when you go, what do you say? Like even in the Bhagavad Gita, if you remember, we talked a lot about the difference between Atma and Anatma. And then we went to chapter 4. And chapter 4 in the sloka, Brahmarpanam Brahmahavi, what did you do? Having this, go ahead.
Everything became just Advait, just Brahman.
Everything became Brahman. So this is the methodology of the teaching. You first introduce creation. Right? So you say there is Brahman, there is Ishvara, there is creation. Ishvara created the creation, all these things you put in. So you're introducing a creation in the first place. It is meant as a understanding measure for beginning students, right? For junior students. And then later on as you go up, you say no. Actually speaking, there is nothing called Anatma which is separate from Atma or Brahman. So that is called the negation. So there are two aspects of the teaching. One is the temporary introduction of the teaching, which is, you can call it superimposition, Adhyaropa. And later on the Adhyaropa is going to be negated, leaving behind what is below. And what is below? Brahman. So this particular, prakriya, this methodology is called Adhyaropa Apavada. And that is the way in which our Sampradaya teaches. And as you go through Upanishad, you will find that more and more, every Upanishad starts with Srishti. Every Upanishad ends up saying that there is no such thing called Srishti. So, Adhyaropa Apavada. And Shankara says, therefore, that the first two boons, they represent Adhyaropa. They represent the temporary introduction of the world and the pleasures in the world. And the third boon deals with what? Atma, and therefore Advaita, and therefore Apavada. Having introduced the world in the beginning by way of the two boons, the third boon is negating the world, leaving behind only Advaita Atma, Apavada. So first two boons are Adhyaropa, third boon is Apavada. Adhyaropa is also called Adhyasa. And this is the Sampradaya method, the method of teaching. And the teaching, therefore, the idea here, says Shankara, is that the teaching is complete when all the three boons have been used. That is why Yamaraj gave three boons to know whether what kind of response will be coming from Nachiketa. And it is coming exactly as Yamaraj anticipated. He first asked for things dealing with the material world, and then he asked for that which would negate the material world. Adhyasa and Apavada is complete. Adhyaropa, Apavada is complete. Okay, right. Now, here is the third month, the 20th mantra. So he says, Ya ayam vichikitsa. There is this doubt. Manushye, regarding people, prete, who are dead. Okay. So there is this doubt about people who are dead, people who have died. Ekaha iti ayam asti. Some people say that this person exists. Now remember, this has to be connected to Manushya Prete. Here, it's not a simple expression of opinion, it's a very subtle expression. So he's saying, Ya iyam vichikitsaha, there is a doubt about Prete Manushyahe, about people who are dead. That is the first part of the sentence. The second is Ekaha iti ayam asti. Some people say that this person exists even after the death. Cha ekaha. Some other people say iti na asti. Some people say that he does not exist after death. And hey Yamraja. This is who talking to whom? This is Nachiketa talking to Yamraj. So he says, Tvaya anushitaha. Having been taught by you, aham etat vidyam. I want to understand. And therefore, Varanam, among the boons, Eshaha Tritiya Varaha. This is the third boon. On the face of it, what is he asking? If you want to put it in one sentence, what is the summary of what he has asked?
Is it that what happens after death? It appears that way, he's asking.
Yes, but look at what he has said. So what is he asking about?
He's asking about
Brahman, Kevalyam.
He doesn't know, right? That is why he's asking. But yet he knows there is something fishy in the whole story. So what he's saying that some people say that I will live on after I die. And some people say that I will not live on after I die. So he says, you tell me, he's trying to say that, is there anything which lives on after the bodies are dead? And therefore we see that he's asking about Atma Brahman. Okay, but you have to understand why he's asking. He doesn't know the word Atma Brahman, right? He has not heard of them. But he's heard people saying this, that, I exist after death, I don't exist after death, all these things. And therefore you should tell me what this is. So this is the question. So look at the words, Prete Manushye, after Jiva dies, Vichikitsa Asti. There is a debate, there are some doubts. Eka Asti iti. Some people argue that there is an individual soul in every living being who lives on after the death of the body. Eka iyam nasti iti. Some people believe that there's nothing like an individual soul and that death ends the jiva. So etad vidyam, I want to understand systematically taught by you. Okay. Now this mantra is a very, very important mantra. This third boon is very, very important. Why? Because the entire Upanishad, rest of the Upanishad, starting from the middle of the second section, the entire Upanishad is an answer to this question. So what are these doubts? Shankara provides the answers. Okay, because here Nachiketa has given it in very simple form. Some people say there is a soul which dies. Some people say there is no such thing, and death of the body is death of the jiva. That is Nachiketa's understanding. And so Shankara expands. So he says, Ayam Vichikitsa Manusya. What are these doubts? Shankara says there are some differences. And he gives in his commentary, Sharire Vetirikta Indriyaha. So he says the Jivatma is different from the body. Sharira Vetirikta. The Jivatma is different from the body. And Indriyaha. And the Jivatma is actually the Indriyas, is in the form of the sense organs. That is the first, group of people who hold these views, that we are actually the Indriyas and we are different from the body. So Jivatma is in the form of the Indriyas, form of sense organs. Then the second group is there, Sharirendriya Vatirakta Manaha. So Jivatma is different from Sharira and Indriya. Sharire Indriya Vatirikta Manaha. Jivatma is in the form of the Manaha, the mind only, and the Jivatma is therefore different from body and sense organs. First group of people is Jivatma is different from sense organs. Second group of people is Jivatma is different from both body and sense organs. The third is Sharirendriya Manaha Vatirikta Buddhi. So Sharirendriya Manaha Vatirikta. The third says that no, the Jivatma is different from body, is different from sense organs, and is different from the mind, but it is actually in the form of the intellect. That is also one group of people. And there is a fourth group of people who say Sharirendriya Manobuddhi Vatirikta. Jivatma is different from all these four. It is different from Sharirendriya, different from Manobuddhi also. And then there are more doubts Shankara gives. He says, some people say, Dehantara Sambandhi Atma iti eke. Eke, some people say, Dehantara Sambandhi, they say this surviving Jivatma, Atma, Deha Antara Sambandhi, connects to a body which is different from the current body. So he's saying that when this Jivatma dies, when this Jivatma body dies, that surviving Jivatma takes on another body. So that is a fifth group of people. And there is another group of people which says, Na ayam asti iti chaike. Another group says that whatever the first five have said, that is all wrong. There is no such thing as a Jivatma in any of these forms which have been discussed. And there is the last one, the Vedantin, who says there is a Atma which is different from the above. The Atma survives the death of the body, but the Atma does not acquire any body. Okay, so this is a very important point. That Atma which survives the death of the body, it does not acquire any body. Why do we say this is the Vedantin's view? Because so far, what did we read? We said it acquires another body. But here Shankara is saying no. It is a Vedantic view that Atma survives, but there is no question of any other body being acquired. Okay. So what is here? We have to, look at it. We can talk about it easily in terms of RC and OC. Is Nachiketa asking about the RC or the OC? Why that doubt can arise? Why is there a doubt about whether Nachiketa is asking about RC or OC? How can that doubt arise? Why should that doubt arise?
dropping off of the body. So the question can arise that, once the body gets dropped, the Sukshma Shariram is the traveler and goes to different places. But that has already been addressed in the previous
Verse.
mantra.
Yeah.
So therefore, one can come to the conclusion that out here, he is not talking about that, but talking about that which survives even, the pralayam, Mahapralayam, essentially.
Correct. So you can have a doubt whether Nachiketa asking about RC or OC, basically because both RC and OC, they survive the death of the body. But it is very clear from the second boon itself that Nachiketa is not asking about the RC because he already knows about the RC, right? How do we say he knows? Because he asked for a boon which takes him to Swargaloka, Brahmaloka. Obviously, it is the RC he is asking about. He is a Jivatma, which he is asking about. Chidabhasa is the RC, and therefore he knows about the Chidabhasa. So now it is pretty obvious that since he already knows about the Chidabhasa and he has asked for the boon related to the traveling of Chidabhasa to Swarga or Brahmaloka, it is from here you have to understand that Nachiketa is asking about OC only, about original consciousness only. Right? Okay. Now comes the rest of it. Yamaraj is not very sure that this young boy is, able to understand what he's going to say. I would ask things that what will this 8-year-old boy know about, Brahman and all that? I don't want to talk about it because he's not sure that Nachiketa is an adhikari. And therefore he says, Devaihi api atra. Devahi api, even the gods. Vichikit sitam atra. Regarding this, even the gods had entertained some doubts. When? Pura, long ago. And nahi suvignyayam. It cannot be easily understood. What? Esha dharmaha. So here, the use of the word dharma is in a very technical sense. Dharma here means Atma. So, Esha Dharmaha Anuhu, this Atma is very subtle for Nachiketaha. Nai Suvignyayam, it cannot be easily understood. So, Esha Dharmaha Anuhu, he Nachiketa, Nahi Suvignyayam. Oh, Nachiketa, this Atma is very subtle, and such doubts have been entertained not only by you, but by even the gods long ago. It cannot be easily understood. Therefore, what does he say? Hey Nachiketa, Anyam Varam Rinishva. Choose another boon. I don't want to tell you about this Atma because I'm not very sure you'll understand. And even the gods could not understand. Hey Nachiketa, how is it possible for you to understand? Therefore, Anyam Varam Rinishva. Choose another boon. And Ma Uparotisihi. Ma means me. Uparotisihi is compel. Or here, ma uparati. There are two mas. So do not, one of the mas not. So ma, do not compel me to answer this question. Ati srijja enam me. Give up this question. Right? So he is saying that this question which you have asked is about a very subtle subject. And even the gods have not understood. And therefore, I would not like to talk about this. He doesn't say this. I think you are not adhikari enough. You are not a competent student for this purpose. So you ask any other boon and give up this question. Why does Yama think so? Because the question itself is a bit vague, right? He says what? Some people say he survived. Some people say he does not survive. So the question is a bit vague. And therefore, looking at that vagueness in the question, Yamaraj feels that Nachiketa is not ready. Now the thing is, the Yamaraj is a competent teacher, and competent teachers should be able to understand even confused questions. And Yamaraj has actually understood the question very correctly. What is the question? Nachiketa is wanting to know if there is anything which will survive after the death of the body. And according to Shastram, 3 things survive the death of the body. What are they? Anybody? Good old Tattva Bodha.
Sukshma Shariram,
Okay. 1,
the Karanam Shariram,
2,
and the Atman.
3. Right. So the subtle body, the causal body, and the Atma, they survive the death of the physical body. Now, the Papam and the Punyams, they are stored in that composite entity which you call Sukshma Karana Sharira. It's a nucleus. So that Punyam and Papam are stored there. And they are both finite entities and limited. And therefore, if at all, after death, we conceive of any travel, that travel belongs to this composite entity, Sukshma Karana Sharira. Atma cannot travel, remember. Whenever we talk about Jivatma traveling after death, this traveling Jiva is the combination of the causal body and the subtle body, the Sukshma Karana complex it is. And the non-traveling Atma is the Atma. So there is a traveling Atma and there is a non-traveling Atma. So two of the things which survive after the death of the physical body, they travel. The third thing which survives, it does not travel. Now in Jivatma, in the Karma Kanda, in the Purva Veda, remember, consists of 3 things. Sukshma Shariram, Karana Shariram, and what?
Sthula Sharira.
Jivatma, no. Jivatma and Veda Purva is Sukshma plus Karana plus what? These are all rooted in Tattvabodha. You have to remember Tattvabodha constantly.
Plus the OC.
Plus the OC.
RC.
Oh, yeah, fine. Plus OC you can say, because Sukshma plus Karana is the 2 RMs and the OC is the entity. When Sukshma and the Karana, which are the RMs, when they are in contact with the OC, that gives rise to the RC. So Jivatma means the RC reflected in the 2 RMs of Sukshma Shariram and Karana Shariram. How does it travel? Why do you say it travels? See, ultimately, if you look at it, the Jivatma has not 3 components. It has got 4 components. The subtle body, the causal body, the original consciousness, and therefore reflected consciousness. Right? And whenever you say Jivatma travels, you are talking about the RC traveling. RC travels why? Why do you say RC travels? Because the RM travels. Because Shariram travels. Only when the Sharirams travel can the RC be seen as traveling. And OC, of course, there is no travel. So that you have to understand. When you take the mirror from one place to another, the reflected sun in the mirror also travels, right? But the original sun stays where it is, in the heavens. So in Vedanta, you can take it as, there are 2 parts of this. When you talk about Jivatma in Karma Kanda, it is always the RC. When you talk about Vedanta in Jnana Kanda, it is always the OC. So that is a very important point of understanding. That's why you always say everything is contextual. You're talking in Karma Kanda, your Jivatma is RC. You're talking in Jnana Kanda, your Jivatma is no different from Atma. So the question is Nachiketas asking about RC or OC? Remember that he knows that RC is the traveling Jivatma because he has already asked for and got the second boon, going to heaven, Homa. And he's also learned the Nachiketa ritual. And this Atma topic is very difficult to understand. And Yama now feels that it might be just too profound a topic for Nachiketa. So he wants to give a test to find out whether this Nachiketa boy is qualified for the knowledge. Right? So this is what is now going to be discussed. So he says, Devai Rati Api. Even the gods, Atra Jnanam, Atra this Jnana Jnana, this Atma Jnanam, Vichikitsa Pura, had doubts long ago. Okay. And when we do Kathopanishad, you will know that there is a story of the Devi who appeared as a yaksha, particular form of celestial being, and showed herself to all the devatas. Most of the devatas they could not understand. Only Agni had some doubts. So only Agni went back. Not Agni, sorry. Only Indra had some doubts. Sorry. Indra went back, and therefore, among all the devatas who confronted this particular yaksha, only one person had the intellect to know that it is not yaksha, it is something else. This is a story, therefore. Story basically mentions that most of the devatas could not understand, and it was only Indra who understood. And Indra taught the other devatas. So this is a reference. Many devas, even long ago, had doubts about what is this Atma. So he says, you won't understand. So don't let me answer this question. Don't force me to answer this question. It's a difficult subject. Ask for any other boon, he says. Okay. Then we go to verse number 22. So he is continuing. Atra kilaha, regarding this indeed. It's a very beautiful verse. Our man, Nachiketas, is going to use the same argument that Yama is giving, that what is Yama saying? This is a very complex Atma and therefore I cannot teach you. Right? Now, Nachiketas, being a smart boy, is using that very same argument to say that, yes, it's a very complex concept. So only you can teach me. It's a very beautiful way of turning the whole thing on the teacher. So he says, Atra kila, indeed. Kila is a word which is used to emphasize. So like we say, is it true or is it not? That kind of a thing. So Atra kila. Vivikit satam. There has been a doubt, api devayai, even among the gods, mrityu, O Lord Yama. And as you say, tvam cha atha, as you say, yathna sugnyeyam. This cannot be understood very easily. But tvadraka anyaha vakta asyana labhya. A teacher of your caliber cannot be found anywhere else in the universe. And therefore, na kaschid anya varaha. There can be no boon at all, which is equivalent to the third boon that you should teach me about Atma. So he's saying it's a very complex subject. Where will I find another teacher like you, O Lord Yama? And therefore, there cannot possibly be any other boon which can compare with this boon. So the same reason that Yamaraj gave for not teaching is the same reason which Nachiketa is saying, you must teach. So when something is rare and others do not have it, we want it. And this is exactly what Nachiketa is saying. Hey Yamaraj, you are a great teacher. Where will I find such a teacher? And therefore, Anyaha vara kaschid nasti, there is no boon etas tulyaha. As great as this boon, there will be no other boon. You please teach me. So Yamaraj is pleased. Okay, obviously. But he would like to test again whether this boy is really adhikari, sadhana chatushta sampanna. So Yamaraj says. So this next one, the 23rd mantra is Yamaraj Ovach. So he's saying, Pranishva, choose. Choose what? Obviously, choose in exchange for the teaching of Atma Vidya, which you're asking for. Choose. Putra Pautraha. Sons and grandsons you choose. And Shatayushaha. Each son and each grandson will have 100 years of life. Sata Ayushaha. Shata Ayusha. Will have 100 years of life for each grandson and each son. Not only that, Bahun Pashun. You choose many cattle. Remember, cattle in the old days was a sign of wealth. So he's basically saying that choose as much wealth as you want. Bahun Pashun. And if you are not satisfied with just cattle, Hasti you choose. Hasti is elephants. Hiranyam you choose. Hiranyam is gold. Ashwan, elephants you choose. Vrinishva. Choose all the elephants, all the horses, all the gold, all the cattle, as much as you want. Not only that, Bhume Mahad Ayatanam. Choose a very vast kingdom on earth. It's a huge temptation, right? He's saying choose whichever kingdom you want. What a massive temptation. And don't worry, he says, Swayam cha jivaha yavat sharada ichhasi. So he's worried that, Nachiketas might think that if I have such a big kingdom, supposing I don't have enough life to enjoy it. So he says, Swayam cha jiva ichhasi yavat sharad. Sharad is number of years. As many years of life as you want to live, that also you can choose. Not only am I giving you the greatest of all kingdoms, you can choose to live for as long as you want. So what is being tested over here? What is the quality which is being tested? The most important quality for a seeker.
Mumukshutva.
No.
Viveka Vairagyam.
Viveka Vairagyam and dispatch. Vairagyam basically. Vairagyam triggered by Viveka. So Yamaraj is offering possessions, objects, everything to Yamaraj. And if you want everything to Nachiketas. And if you want to understand, you have to put yourself in the shoes of Nachiketas. What would you do if on one hand there was Atma-jnana being offered, and the other hand the whole world being offered with infinite number of years of life? That is what is being pointed out. You can live for as long as you want, with as much wealth as you want, being the king. In exchange for that, don't ask me for Atma-jnana. So if you understand that, then you understand what it means. So here, the Nachiketa does not say anything, right? He doesn't answer at all. Yamaraj thinks that he doesn't answer because he is not satisfied with what Yamaraj is offering. He wants more. That is Yamaraj's thing. Nachiketa is not answering. Why? Because he is not interested. But Yamaraj is not thinking that. Yamaraj thinks maybe he wants a bit more. Right? So he offers. In the next verse, he offers more. So he says, Yadi manyase etat tulyam varaha. If you think of any other gun, etat tulyam varam, if you think of Yadi manyase, pranishva, choose that also. Right? And he said, I've already told you, vittam, wealth, any amount of wealth you can choose. Chirajivikam, long life you can choose. And Mahabhumau Tvam Edhi. So you have to write here, you have to supply here Chakravarti or the emperor. You can become the emperor of this great earth. That also you can choose. In Nachiketa, he says, Karomi Tva Kama Bhajam Kara Kama Nam. Kama Bhajam is the enjoyer. Kama Nam is pleasures. So he says, Hey Nachiketa, I shall make you the enjoyer of all pleasures. Choose whatever you want. So Yamaraj is making further additions to the offer. In addition to what has been offered to you, wealth and long life, you can become the emperor of this earth. And Kama Bhajam, Kamanam Karomi. You can enjoy all the sense pleasures that you can possibly think of. Imagine the temptation that is being offered. On one hand, only Atma-jnana, very dry subject. On the other hand, the whole world, a long life, full of sense pleasures. And he says, Chandata Prathiyas, freely choose. Sarvan Kaman, any pleasures that you desire. Chandata means to desire. And any pleasure that you desire, you may choose. Ye Kama Durlavaha Martyaloke. So Durlavaha, not easily available, attainable. Ye Kamaha, whatever pleasures are not attainable very easily in this mortal world. And he gives examples. Ima Ravaha. So Ima Ramaha is celestial woman, Apsaras. Okay. So the word Rama is not Lord Rama. Okay. The word is Rama. Rama is from, the derivation is Ramayanti Purusha Niti. Those who give joy to people by way of what? Music and dance. These are called Rama, Apsaras. Apsaras are called Apsara because, why? Why are Apsaras called Apsara? Anybody? Look at the word, first part of the word Apsara. What does it remind you of? Nobody? A little bit of brain being exercised.
The one who moves above, Apsara.
No, up is not English. That's good. Up is the waters. Up.
Ah,
Up is water. So Apsaras, those who were churned up from the Samudra Manthanam. Apsaras. Okay. So he says, I'll give you all this. Yama Ramaha, all these Apsaras you can have. Saratha and Saturiyaha, along with their vehicles and their musical instruments. Because Apsara is supposed to play music, right? And Idrashaha, the Lambhamanyaha, these kind of pleasures cannot be obtained at all, Manushyehi, by human beings. And not only that, Paricharyasva, you will be served by these people, Abhimat Prathabhihi, by those who are being offered by me. You will be served by all these Apsaras and all these people whom I am offering you, He Nachiketaha. But Anuprakshima, please do not ask me about Marana. About death, you please don't ask. He again says, I don't want to talk about this death. And what are you asking? Instead of that, whatever you want to say, whatever you want as material pleasures, I will give you. So he says, Prete asti nasti iti. That is the meaning of Maranam. Please don't ask me whether there is something which survives the death of the body or not. That question I'm not willing to answer. But I will give you all these pleasures. So previously what happened in the earlier verses, Yama offered all the materialistic pleasures of earth. Right? Now Apsara is where? On earth or in heaven? Apsaras are in heaven. So now sensing that Nachiketas was not satisfied with the pleasures of earth, by offering Apsaras, he is saying that okay, you don't want the pleasures of earth, fine, you can have them, but I am giving you the pleasures of Swargaloka also. So higher quality of pleasures. Shastra says that in Swargaloka, your sense organs, your body actually is of a higher quality. Not only that, your sense objects which you get there are also of higher quality. And the environment also is of higher quality. And therefore, Martyaloke Durlabha Kamaha. These pleasures are not easily available at all. In fact, these pleasures are not available at all on this Bhuloka of yours. And therefore, Sarvan Kaman Chandataha, without any reservation or hesitation, ask for all those pleasures, including celestial women who are well versed in the performing arts, along with their vehicles, along with the musical instruments. These all you will not find in earth. And He Nachiketa, you will be served and entertained by all of them. But please don't ask me about Atma Vidya. Okay. And Shankara adds here very interesting tidbit. He says, Kakadanta Pariksha Rupam. Kakadanta Pariksha means examining the teeth of a crow. Kaka is a crow, Danta is a teeth, Pariksha is examination. Shankara says all this is like examination of a crow. Crow's teeth. This is an idiom used to describe futile activity. Shankara's comment is that the whole thing is a futile activity. Why are you doing this? And therefore, the crucial question here is for all of us. Do I have a mind ready to sacrifice all these things in exchange for Atmagyan? Am I ready to sacrifice everything on this earth and everything in the next world also for Atmagyanam? Which means, do I have that kind of value for Atmagyan? Is Atma more valuable or is Anatma more valuable? Nitya Anitya Vastu Vivekaha. This is the question I have to answer. So Vairagyam is an internal mindset. It is the readiness to lose everything that I have, to lose whatever can be lost. Only one thing cannot be lost. That is your Atma. And therefore, Yama is testing this level of Vairagyam. Now, how will, from the last three verses, the mantras, 23rd mantra, 24th mantra, and 25th mantra, Yamaraj has offered a lot of things, a lot of material things to Nachiketa. How will he react? This is in the next class. Verse mantra number 26, which we will see in the next class. Any questions? We are open. Yes, Ringu, please.
Acharya ji, when we are speaking of the Swarglokas, the Brahma Lokas, which are the subtle aspects, we often say that up to Swargloka, one still, the physical body will die in Prithvi Loka, and then one travels up to Swargloka and further on to Brahma Loka. So are these lokas actually states of mind which are seen in meditation? Or because essentially this is all mithya. So even if we say that it travels, nothing travels.
Well,
What are these lokas actually?
your definition of mithya is what?
So everything anatma, everything except the atma is all mithya.
Yeah, but is it your, see, there are three words which are used, for abhava. Abhava means non-existence. There are three types of non-existence, or two types of non-existence. One is, or in fact, three types. One is what we call tuchha abhava. Tuchha abhava means what? Completely non-existent. Atyanta abhava, completely non-existent. One is called mithya, relatively non-existent. Which one are you saying?
I want to know the difference between the two. Mithya is because I'm still perceiving everything. So
No, mithya is
the
because there's a
lokas-
dependence. And if you remember Tattva Bodha, Satyam is described as
Satyam Eka.
absolute truth, or that which is not that which is the only true thing, which exists in both all the three time frames, that is past, present, and future. That is Satyam.
Okay, so I'll be speaking from mithya point of view. So when we are talking of the lokas and the physical body, so we said the death of the physical body because we are speaking of the lokas. So that comes under the anatma prapancha.
Yes.
So from that, what essentially is the lokas and what are the planes of consciousness which people describe in meditation? Are the lokas also?
They are confusing many types of texts. Okay. We are saying that anything which is not Brahman, anything dependent upon Brahman is mithya.
Right.
And Anatma Prapancha includes Swarga Loka, Brahma Loka, everything. Because when you say that Sarvam Brahma, anything, and what is the definition of anything which is not Brahman is mithya? That is the definition we got in Tattva Bodha, right?
So
Anything which is
anatma
not Brahman.
prapancha, anatma prapancha would not
Mithya.
be mithya.
Very much
This is
mithya.
mithya.
Yeah,
Only.
you are mithya, your travel is mithya, your Swargaloka is mithya, your Bhuloka is mithya, everything is mithya.
Right.
So what is it? You are confusing between the I. You, the I, when you say, who is I?
From the mithya standpoint, if we take the I, the reflecting consciousness in meditation, what would be the I?
You, the RC, one who meditates.
Right. So the lokas come under the, so when we are speaking of the reflective consciousness, so the lokas, in the meditation, do people perceive it as that way, that moving
That is not at all consistent with anything Shastra says. Shastra says that on the death of the physical body, the surviving Supra Shariram and Karma Shariram, which is the Jivatma, that travels from Loka to Loka, depending on which Loka is the appropriate place for it. So there is no proof of the fact that the Lokas are there, right? There is no scientific proof of any Loka. But because the whole thing deals with, scriptural truths, and whatever is dealt with by certain scriptural truths are not available in science. And that is what is called Shraddha. So if your scripture says that yes, there are 14 lokas, you take it as granted. Why? Because you have no way of proving it is not there. Of course, it's another thing that you also have no way of proving that it is there. And therefore, when your other pramanam are not capable of proving or disproving, you have to accept Shastram as pramanam and say, yes, there are lokas.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Tanmay, you wanted to say something?
No, Acharya. It was it actually wasn't really a question. It was just about So in the Bhagavad Gita, we've got in the 8th chapter, and I think at some other point also, which talks about during the day of Brahmaji, there is everything is vyakta again, and during his night, everything is avyaktam. So when during his night, when everything is avyaktam, is that avyaktam only for Bhuloka, which has that system of the kalpa and whatever? Is it only for Bhuloka, or is it for all the other lokas as well? But it was very irrelevant. That's why I lowered my hand again.
No, when everything is avyaktam, it is avyaktam for all the lokas. Because you have to take it that manifest loka is not just the physical universe which is see. The manifest loka is also all the other lokas.
Right.
You are not seeing it. So Shastra says you cannot see it with the physical eyes that you have.
Right. So my question then stemmed from that little portion, earlier, a couple of mantras ago, that that the jiva that goes to Brahmaloka, when is Videha Mukti for the jiva? So we spoke during Mahapralayam.
Yes.
But then during the night, when everything is avyaktam, wouldn't it be at that point in time, which is not Mahapralayam?
So that for Brahmaloka, I said, does not get destroyed during Pralayam. Other lokas do. Brahmaloka doesn't.
So what happens then? This person is also sleeping?
No. The night of Brahma, he's sleeping, but he's alive.
Right.
And therefore, this fellow also sleeping.
That's what I'm. It was a very silly question, Acharya. That's why I lowered my hand.
This fellow also sleeping. It's a day and night for him, so there's no problem.
I know. Okay. So it's not avyakta for Brahmaloka.
No,
right?
no.
That's what my question was. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Any other questions, please? Okay. So with this, we'll stop. We run out of a bit of overtime, but I hope you guys don't mind. So, Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Evavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Acharya.
Om
Thank you, Acharya.